All right, welcome, everyone. It is November 4th, 2020, and we are gathered for the monthly voting meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission. And we typically meet first Tuesday of the month, but given Election Day, as has been typical in recent cycles, we've moved this meeting to the first Wednesday of the month. First order of business is to ask the clerk if she could call roll for us, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Davenport,
Here.
Parker, Blink,
Here, sorry.
Wright.
Jean, it's great to have you back. I'm here.
Thank you. Denson,
Here.
Edwards,
Here.
Harrod,
Present.
Thornton,
Here.
and Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of meetings of Tuesday, October 6th, Tuesday, October 13th, Tuesday, October 20th, and Tuesday, October 22nd. 27th, excuse me. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Davenport, and I have a second from Commissioner Denson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, are there any written communications, Madam Clerk?
We have one. For entry to the record, we have notice of acceptance of the right-of-way for portions of streets in the Town Hall Square Phase 2.
Great, thank you much for that. I appreciate it. I would like to ask at this point if someone could make a motion for suspension of rules, as we have some items of new business in executive session following the public session tonight.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, have a motion for suspension of rules from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Denson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. We have rules in suspension. I would like to also ask for a motion that we rearrange the agenda to allow item number 32 to go first, as we have our outside counsel, Dan McCrae, with us. Would somebody be willing to make a motion to consider item 32 as a first order of business?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Edwards and a second from Commissioner Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. I appreciate it. And as I mentioned a moment ago, Dan McCrae is on the call with us. And we have been fervently working all year long with Dan, with Sarah George, our analyst here in the manager's office, with Ilka McConnell in economic development, and certainly also with our partners at the Clarke County School District to get this initial round of tax allocation districts across the finish line in this calendar year. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Manager Williams so he can describe what's in front of us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I also appreciate you recognizing some of the staff that have been working on this, and also want to point out Joseph D'Angelo, our Geographic Information Officer, who's done a great deal of work as well, and certainly Dan and his staff. 6 TADs, redevelopment plans and TADs is a big lick at one time, and so we're proud to be here tonight. There's been a lot of work, and certainly want to give you the opportunity to hear all this and ask questions. And Dan and I are going to share this presentation with you and step through it quickly, but we want to be able to explain to the viewing public so they understand what's going on. And of course, the school district is a part of this, and Dan and I will be presenting to them at their regular work session tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and talk a little bit more about the school impact analysis. There's no action to ask of you tonight. This is merely presenting the redevelopment plans. Dan will cover this again at the end, but next Monday night we'll have a public hearing, and a week from tonight you'll be asked to take action on these redevelopment plans. The quick turnaround is due to the fact that these TADs need to be certified by December 31st to go into effect next year. That involves the Department of Revenue. And once you've taken action and the school board taken action, then that should give them sufficient time to make that happen. prior to the end of this year. So we are working on a time deadline here. So with that, Mayor, and Commission, I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. And what I'd like to step through very quickly for the benefit of the viewing public is just some of the basics about TADs, and then I will hand over to Dan to finish the presentation talking about the 6 specific redevelopment plans. So this evening, I'm going to talk to you briefly about TADs and the benefits of using them, and then Dan will talk about the redevelopment plans, goals and allocations, the criteria for qualification, and key dates and next steps. So what is a TAD? And for those folks out there that are new to this, it is a tool for redevelopment. It is a power that was given to local governments by the state of Georgia through the Redevelopment Powers Act. And basically what it does, it creates a geographic area where once the baseline is set, and you heard me allude to December the 31st, these actions will culminate in the geographic areas that will be discussed tonight, with a baseline being set by the end of the year, and any increases in taxable value or reassessed will create an extra increment, and we'll talk more about that here. It's also called tax increment financing in other states. It's TADs here in Georgia, and that's what we're working on here. So let me move this out of the way so we can see better. So TADs only use the new tax revenue. So the baseline, that is the taxes that are currently being generated as we speak for these areas we're going to discuss, that will continue to go to the school district and the local government respectively. Any new growth that occurs will be set aside for the use of the purposes that you will approve for these TADs. And so the TADs are not for an infinite time. There's a certain time period, and that new increment that's generated can be dedicated within that geographic district for those purposes that you lay out. And at some point in the future, in the hopes that the reinvestment in these tax allocation districts spurs on even more redevelopment, then the taxable value grows, and when the TAD ends, then those new taxes will accrue to both the school district and the local government. And you can see here, one are the in this diagram, one is the existing tax digest, 2 is the growth in new taxes, number 2 that would accrue and be channeled back towards this geographic district or TAD. And then once the TAD wears off, 3 are the new taxes that have been created that will go back to the local government and the school district. So some of the benefits to this, you can really, and what it was meant to do was spur on redevelopment, quite frankly. And so you can have some broader objectives. It can be economic development, it can be affordable housing, it can be infrastructure. And what you're doing is you are creating this area where this whatever new increment is generated, it will be reinvested in that area for those purposes and hopefully to spur on more redevelopment. One of the things that without it, then this area may never redevelop. So it's meant for those areas that you really want to pay some attention to. And what sort of ingrained in me early on, the TADs have been around for quite a while, as Dan can speak to, and there were some updates that the legislature provided to the Redevelopment Powers Act a few years ago. But what we call the but-for test when creating TADs, and that is if what you're trying to do is help development that would not occur but for the TAD and the funds that are generated and the incentives that can be provided to spur on redevelopment. So if something was going to happen anyhow, that's one thing. But if this can really help an area overcome some of its challenges, blight and things of that nature, that's the but-for test that we're referring to. So some things in the Redevelopment Powers Act that where TAD has to be located, it has to be in an urbanized area, and it has to be an area presently served by sewer. And it has to qualify as a blighted or distressed area, a deteriorating area, or an area with inadequate infrastructure. And that's something Dan will speak to that's unique to each of the 6 areas that you have asked for this in. So if you'll remember, and just for the benefit of the viewing public, we began talking about tax allocation districts last year. There were a couple of areas that were indicated, and then we went through this process trying to get to that year-end deadline. It was a new venture for all of us. I think there were sufficient questions where Mayor Gertz felt compelled to, put a pause on it and let us take this year to really drill down and find out, make sure that you were on board and had offered your insights as to where you'd like to see this. And the result of that, moving it to this year, was that there's actually 6 areas that you approved, all on September 1st, and then some modifications on September 17th of this year. And you can see these different TAD areas here. Each of these TAD areas that you identify, these redevelopment areas, require a draft redevelopment plan, and that's what staff has been working on the last 60 days, or 45 days, 60 days, and we want to present to you and the school board this week. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and Dan, I will just move the slides as you instruct.
Thank you. Let me begin by thanking everybody for moving us from position number 32. I think y'all are going to have a long night tonight, and I appreciate that. And it's really good to be back together with everyone again. This is a very important and great thing that the community is setting out to do. And it takes process, and it takes understanding of the situation, what the needs are. And the plans have greatly benefited from that. And Blaine and his staff have been fabulous in providing data and responding to 1 million questions. And I hope that the commission will find that to be helpful. And I suppose we'll have questions after, but if y'all have a thought or a question, stop me as I'm going through this. I do lecture sometimes, but interaction is a good thing too. So if you have something on your mind, if a question pops up, then as far as I'm concerned, just ask it and we'll deal with it. With that, Blaine, would you go to the next one? Again, reflection of the high quality of staff support on this. A lot of detail goes into this. It's meaningful to look at these boundary maps of the TADs and see where they are and how big they are, and some of the significances that attach to the location. All of that is meaningful in terms of the current tax digest, the opportunities for growth, and the increment that we might have to work with. So this is a good overview as we begin to approach the TADs in detail. So next, please. Diamonds are forever, but a TAD is not. A TAD has a life, and that life is attached to the payment of the redevelopment costs that are contemplated in the plans. In this case, we contemplate a 20-year life. But if conditions change, then the TAD changes. The commission retains control over this. So tonight what's going on is that the commission as the redevelopment agency, we designated ourselves as the redevelopment agency some years ago, is coming in and submitting to the unified government as the governing body these redevelopment plans. And going forward, it's just the commission that will be making these decisions, although our stakeholders, such as the school district, will have a great deal of involvement. And some of the good public policy in these plans is what you see in the second, the third and fourth bullet points here. But before I get to that, just a word about the nature of these tax allocation districts. As you may have noticed from the area map that we looked at a second ago, the TADs are oriented towards serving an area, serving the community within that area. That's a functional description, an area TAD of what their function is going to be. Sometimes TADs are what's called project TADs, where the TADs are all about a project. For example, in New York, when Amazon was considering New York, I think there was probably going to be some TIF financing involved in that. There typically is with a large project like that. But these TADs are not about the projects, and you'll see some private projects when we get to TAD 3 and TAD 4. Those projects are going to help us help the community by providing the increment that provides the funds to do things within those districts. So, and in terms of how that process will work, it's embedded in the redevelopment plans that if we have dealings with private enterprise projects and decide to provide some funding, then the right is reserved to the commission to do that. But a string is attached in that the developer would have to enter into a written agreement with the unified government to do certain things and to provide certain public benefits in exchange for the financial assistance that they might get. Those things aren't defined yet. They'll be negotiated as part of the process if that day ever comes. And again, those agreements will come back for approval. But it's embedded in here that the public will benefit in the event that it does come to pass that we consider helping a private enterprise project. Right now, the TADs, every single one of these redevelopment plans is about public infrastructure. Another important part of this is the Citizens Advisory Committee. These will be set up by ordinance for each tax allocation district, and they're the members. The composition remains to be defined in the ordinance. Will be involved in the process of reviewing applications, making recommendations about how funds are divided among the goals and that sort of thing. But eventually, all this comes back to the commission for approval or modification. Blaine? So a look back, the goals and priorities were established by the mayor and commission. I mentioned that we have categories, and you'll see those in a minute, of goals, and those represent potential uses of funding. What the percentage is of the available funds will be determined as part of the process. As I mentioned, the Citizens Advisory Committees will see applications, and this will include ACC projects as well. The decision ultimately is with the commission, but what's to be done with the money will be run past the Citizens Advisory Committee. And as mentioned in the last bullet point, you have the right to approve, deny, or modify the application in each specific redevelopment project. There is, these plans are open-ended in the sense that discretion and flexibility are reserved to the commission, but all of this is governed by the Redevelopment Powers Law, which is a very dense statute. As a result of the use of the educational tax being declared unconstitutional, and then the Constitution was amended, and then the Redevelopment Powers Law was reenacted. And as part of that, it was tightened up. So there are discrete requirements to qualify as a tax allocation district. There is a detailed list of what has to go into each redevelopment plan, and there's a defined process that the plans have to go through. So there's a great deal of diligence that's gone into this, and that provides the commission with a very sound foundation going forward. Blaine? All right, the goals and priorities. These are the goals that the commission set. Public infrastructure. You'll see in a minute that a great deal of the justification or the eligibility requirements for these tax allocation districts has to do with deteriorating or inadequate infrastructure. But as part of the diligence on this, I mean, there were studies were undertaken, maps were prepared, review sessions were conducted to make sure, first of all, that the eligibility requirements were met, and then secondly, that we were identifying the things that needed attention. So it's thought that an allocation of public infrastructure needs would be part of this, and that'll probably be a large part of it in a number of cases. Housing opportunities. In at least one of these TADs, we identified a specific need for more affordable housing, but all of the redevelopment plans have a line item for that, for consideration for the allocation of funds. Economic development partnership opportunities. The community's had good success in the last couple of years with some nice technology-oriented biotech projects, for example. And this particular bullet point has to do with incubators, accelerators, and similar spaces. I've seen those things work in what's called the maker community. But if we have a larger project come in that we want to do something to help, then this line item would permit us to do that. At the bottom, we have the Clarke County School District and Youth Development. This is the opportunity for us to share funding with our partners, the school district. They represent 60% of the tax revenue. And it's not that revenue is being given up with nothing being received in return. They have a seat at the table in terms of receiving an allocation of funds. The funds here have to be spent on redevelopment costs, but there are other ways to handle that if need be. But the school district is at the table in terms of youth development and support of the school district needs. Blaine? Oh boy, I spent a lot of time working with staff on this. I mean, first of all, you want to be legal. You want to make sure that you qualify. But the standards are detailed, and we went into these in great length. Basically, there are two high-level requirements, and you have to meet one or the other. And except for one parcel of land, we meet both, and that's presently served by sewer and being an urbanized area. And the area that's not urbanized is served by sewer. Then you get down to the weeds with things like, is the area blighted or distressed? And there are three elements of that test, and we went through that. A lot of that has to do with infrastructure, and a lot of that has to do with transportation. Another broad category is deteriorating, and there are 6 elements of that to be considered. And the last one is inadequate infrastructure, and there are 2 elements of that. So each of these TADs was scored in terms of hitting at least one of the elements, except for deteriorating, where it had hit 2 of the elements. And each of them did, and a number of them, well, all of them hit more than one, but some of them hit quite a few. In general, these are the things that you see at the bottom, indented bullet points, that made the most difference in terms of qualification. And the conditions for qualifying are also indicators of where attention needs to go in terms of redevelopment. The Redevelopment Powers Law is all about redevelopment and making things better, and this is an indication of some areas that need attention. Blaine? The mall area. If you've got a mall, being able to get there on a bus is pretty important, and some attention needs to go to that. Slower growth in the property tax area. This is the one with affordable housing needs, and there were some inadequacies in the utility infrastructure. So TAD 1, the mall area, qualifies. Blaine. West Broad, similar with issues about pedestrian and bike infrastructure, bus stops, road conditions. We did an examination of the streets and roads in each of the TADs and ranked them, from good on down, and did a 100% bar chart. I love visualizing data. And in most of the cases, not all but most, the road conditions scored as an indicator of the need for redevelopment. That's how it looks in West Broad Hawthorne. Blaine. Newton Bridge. I feel like I know Newton Bridge by the back of my hand at this point in time. It's a large TAD, and it's got, and we'll see this a little later, it's got some good increment because of a project. You'll see later the importance of attracting investment into a TAD. Not only does it provide more funds for you to do things, but it helps solve some of the needs. In this case, again, the TAD's not about the project's about the TAD. But we do have these conditions that qualify Newton Bridge as a proper tax allocation district. Thing. Yeah, there's pictures of Southern Mill and General Time. They're moving along, but they're not so far along that we can't include some of their increment into our funding for the tax allocation districts. It's good to see things happening. Number 4, downtown also has a private project that will contribute a good bit of increment. This was, I think, TAD 4 this had about an average amount of qualifying conditions. You see less on the list here, but we scored 2 at a blighted and distressed, didn't qualify as a deteriorating area, but qualified in one element of inadequate infrastructure, so it's in. It's not a large TAD. But it's got a fair amount of, in fact, it's got a large amount of increment because of the private project coming up. Blaine? And there's a picture of the Classic Center Arena. It's going to be nice. It'll contribute to that, to the community and to that TAD in particular. Fine. North Avenue. It's a fairly large size TAD. Unfortunately, it's got fairly low tax digest going into it, so its projected increment is not large, although the assumed growth rate is fairly high. Blaine? Lexington Road and Gang School Road, same sort of thing. TAD 6. Yep, it scored 2 elements. 2 elements in blighted or distressed, did not qualify as deteriorating, and scored 1 element under inadequate infrastructure. But it's qualified. Again, a smaller TAD, not a lot of increment, not the least, but not the largest, and a fairly kind of a middle-sized growth rate for purposes of what we're calculating. All right, so that's an overview. You know, they say, show me the money. I think there was a movie about that. What we're doing, a word about the underlying financial plumbing. So Blaine talked about the increment. You have some choices about what you put into the increment. So we're only putting into the increment taxes on real estate, not personal property, and utility and railroad real estate is not included. And of course, we're not touching the general fund. So it's just the increment in real estate, maintenance and operations millage. And that's the taxes that generate the cash flow. But there has to be taxable value there in order for that real estate to produce an increment. And in our modeling, there's 2 ways that can happen. One way is to have a project, and TAD 3 and TAD 4 have projects. So even though, for example, in TAD 3, the rate of growth is low, in TAD 4, the rate of growth is relatively low, they've got relatively large projects, so they produce large by comparison to the other increments. In 1 and 2 and 5 and 6, you have a combination of low digest and or low growth rate. Now, there's such a thing as the magic of Excel. You can put whatever you want to in an Excel spreadsheet and prove whatever you want to. But I don't, of all the ways to fool somebody, the worst is to fool yourself. So we've been cautious and reasonable with these estimates. I personally hope the estimates are understated. I hope that the growth is faster and larger. I hope that we attract projects into these areas that will benefit the communities. And if we do, then the increments will be larger and we'll be able to pay for more redevelopment costs. But this table that you see here is meaningful in terms of what we say about the amount of redevelopment costs we're going to pay. But it's not limiting. If we succeed beyond the cautious approach that these plans reflect, then these actual numbers will be higher and our ability to do things will be higher. But this is what we're working from in terms of the modeling. And I wish some of those numbers were higher, and hopefully they will be, but they are what they are. Blaine? So as I mentioned, it's not a requirement. We can't say to the school boards, you must consent. But in order for us to use their millage, they have to consent. So we were well received. I think it's fair to say we were well received last year, and interfacing has been going on. So I'm looking forward to meeting with the school board, and hopefully they will consent to this. One of the changes made after the Redevelopment Powers Law was reenacted was to add the requirement for a school system impact analysis. That's been done, and it's contained in each plan. And really, I think that everybody, if a TAD works the way it's supposed to, everybody benefits, and you even benefit outside the TAD. That's called the halo effect, where values go up nearby because you've accomplished your goal of redevelopment. So I hope this is looked on favorably, but we've done what we need to do, and we're prepared as we sit down with our partners. We will be asking them formally to consent, and you'll see that when we get to the schedule a little later. That takes an approving resolution. Blaine? So this is what's in the school system impact analysis. These are the statutory requirements, net new public school students. School districts are always concerned about how many new students are we going to get. Location, some of these TADs had locations, some didn't. E-SPLOST, the E-SPLOST is mainly calculated on projections of sales, if there is taxable sales. If you have a mixed-use development with sales and use tax applying, there'll be some. If you don't, and all you've got is building materials, you'll get sales tax on the building materials, and that's it. And a projection of the average value of residential properties compared to current property values. I've never have understood why that's in there. I mean, I guess folks would be pleased to have their property values go up, but if the property values go up, the taxes go up. So, but it's a statutory requirement, and there it is, and we've got that. Blaine? All right, key dates. So tonight is an important event. We didn't have to advertise it or anything like that, but this is the formal submission by you to you of the redevelopment plans. As Kelly said, there'll be no action taken tonight. There's a requirement to have a public hearing, and we've scheduled that for the 9th. Really, there'll be 6 of these, one after the other, one for TADs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's for the public to comment, no action taken. And then the next day, and this will be advertised also, the plans will be before the mayor and commission for formal approval. We'll be asking the school district in connection with their meeting schedule to vote and approve. And then assuming that we get through all of this the way we hope and anticipate, then we'll ask the assessors to certify the present value of the digest. And there's been a lot of interaction with them already. That'll go to the revenue commissioner, and the TAD will be created on December 31st. The revenue commissioner has 60 days after that to return the certification, but the creation of the TAD is effective on 12/31/20, which is good because that sets our tax increment base, and that sets the threshold for the increment coming into the TAD to be spent on redevelopment. I think that's it. Questions? Who's got questions?
Thanks, Dan. And at the front end, I thank staff and certainly Dan, who's done yeoman's work on this. But also, just entering kind of Q&A time here, I want to thank all of you on the County Commission. It's been a journey we've been on last year and a half, and I think you've clung along with it, and I really appreciate your efforts and your contributions. All of these took different form than they originally had, and I think that's because you really know your districts well. You know the street corners, you know the connecting alleyways, you know how to make these the best possible version they could be, and really lead our community into better development patterns not just for development interests, but for regular folks on the street every day who are going to benefit from all of the things that come through these goal areas that you've highlighted. So any questions either for Dan or for staff members? Yeah, Patrick.
Thank you, Dan and staff, for all your hard work. I just got just a query about when we submit this to the Department of Revenue. Do you foresee any hiccups, or like what's the procedure when we submit it to the Department of Revenue? Do they come back to us for feedback, or?
No, it's very straightforward. We write a letter, redevelopment agency, which is y'all, will write it. Blaine will sign it, or the mayor will sign it, and it'll go to the assessors. They'll write us back saying, yeah, that's the number. We know that's the number because we got it from them. And then we'll send it to the Revenue Commission, who knows that's the number because they've been involved in the digest setting process. And then they'll send us back a certification. It's to create a record of what the base is, so that you make sure that the right money gets reinvested in the TED and other money doesn't. The increment, remember, continues to flow to the regular taxing jurisdiction, so it's important to set a baseline. But that's a pro forma process. There are no surprises there.
Thanks, Dan. Others? All right. Once again, no action tonight, but this is an opportunity to get sort of public presentation on the nature of each one of these and the nature of the program broadly. Again, this will be going in conversational terms, I think much like this, probably, Dan, to the school district. Mm-hmm. And then on Monday will be the public hearing, and then Tuesday next week, concurrent with our normally scheduled work session, will be the special called session for commission approval of these. And just a heads up, everybody, because of the special called session, our work session will be online on WebEx, just like this meeting will be. Go ahead, Blaine.
Well, Mayor, and Commission, if I may ask, if you have any questions or technical points that you'd like clarification on, if it's reasonable to ask for those prior to the end of day Friday, that'll give staff some time to respond to that. As you can imagine, if there are any modifications at this late date, it would take a good bit of recalculation. So any concerns or suggestions you have, the sooner we know those, the better.
Thanks, Blaine. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dan, for being with us. I appreciate it. And we will now go forward with our consent agenda.
Thanks, everybody. I enjoyed being with you, and I appreciate the chance to work with you on these TADs. And really, these are better because of the commissioner's involvement. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll say good night.
Thanks, Dan. We'll give you a tour of these when you can come into town next time.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Thank you much. See you soon. All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody, as is always the case, our consent agenda is typically approved with a single vote. And these are items on our agenda numbers 1 through 18. Before I have the attorney read the ordinances associated, I want to see if any commissioner would like to remove any of these items from consent. All right. Everybody's as weary as I am, so everything stays on consent. I think we have 4 ordinances. Attorney Drake, could you read those for us, please?
That's correct. Agenda items 1 through 4. The first one, agenda item 1, is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to water and sewer fees and for other purposes. The second one, agenda item number 2, is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to shareable dockless mobility devices and for other purposes. The third one, agenda item number 3, is opening. One second. It relates to planning for the Carr Creek Tracts. It reads as follows: an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to fund green space and greenway deed restrictions on the Carr Creek Tracts and for other purposes. And the fourth ordinance is agenda item number 4. It's related to the grant Stop Violence Against Women grant. It reads as follows: an ordinance to amend the FY 2021 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide grant funding, if awarded, from the Georgia Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for personal service and operating expenses for domestic violence case supervision and for other purposes. That's all the ordinances. Those are all the ordinances, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Attorney Drake. All right, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll give the motion to Commissioner Harrod, the second to Commissioner Parker. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries, so the consent agenda is approved.
Is that a
All right.
record? 18 items?
You know, I think you guys have just been going through this with a fine-tooth comb and ensuring that during our agenda-setting meeting, we were able to shift all of these to consent. I think as a proportion of an agenda, I don't know that I've ever seen a bigger chunk on consent, so kudos. All right, moving on to old business. Number 19 is the Legislative Review Committee report regarding neighborhood traffic management. I know there's a commission-defined option and some discussion of some additional work here, so certainly be glad to turn it over, I guess, first to LRC Chair, Commissioner Wright, and then to other commissioners.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I saw that there's a commission defined option, and it's a little confusing to me using the word significant and relating it to a 25% or a 30% mathematical correlation. I recommend that we just send this back to LRC so we can work through these details and assess what's going on with that.
Second.
I agree. I think that this could use a little more working out. It's a issue that is of high importance to pretty much all our constituents. We hear more about speeding traffic than probably anything else by far. So I would love to see this go back to committee and have the committee members discuss more, particularly the issues that Commissioner Parker and I added to the criteria, considering the number of homes on a street that might have no driveway and the number of homes on a street that are set closer than 20 feet from the right of way that are right up there on the curb that are much more impacted by speeding traffic than, say, homes that are set 30, 40, 50 feet from it.
A couple other comments. I see Commissioner Harrod and Commissioner Parker.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at the CDO with the added E and F that are highlighted in yellow. So F, the significant number of homes on the street that are set closer than 20 feet to the right of way, that makes perfect sense to me. The one I had a question about is the other one, which says significant number of homes on the street that have no driveway. And I'm wondering what the logic of that is, because I'm assuming if they don't have a driveway, then people park on the street, and having cars park on the street is a well-known traffic calming, easy mechanism. So I perfectly understand F, because if your house is close to the street, you don't want a lot of speeding traffic going by. But if somebody could explain to me why E makes sense, as I said, parking on the street is, we encourage people to do that because it slows traffic. So somebody could explain it to me. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll explain the logic behind that. And this has particular relevance in older neighborhoods where you have a lot of smaller homes set close together. Often there are shared driveways or no driveways, particularly in my district in places like West Hancock and the Rock Springs neighborhood. I know Commissioner Parker has a lot of these streets in East Athens. And the particular danger in these kind of streets is that if someone is required to park on the street, then they have absolutely no buffer from the speeding traffic as they get in and out of their car, unloading their groceries. Also, these streets tend to not have sidewalks. They're in very, very dense neighborhoods where there's really no room for a sidewalk. So people are walking in the street. And you would think that cars parked on the street would be a traffic calming mechanism, but that's not always the case. Often, because these are in-town urban neighborhoods, you get a lot of cut-through traffic. So folks who walk on the street are put in even more danger. So that's when traffic calming measures like speed bumps and extra stop signs might be all the more necessary, even if they don't meet those trips per day thresholds.
Commissioner Manager Williams, you had a note about that piece.
Yes, and it might be helpful too because the intent I think is good. Every neighborhood's a little bit different sometimes with the road conditions. So perhaps the roadway safety audit team can help make those calls and recommendations as they come. The only other thing I just want to make on the cars parked on the street, they do slow the vehicles down. And sometimes those speed tables can take up some parking spaces as they extend across the street. So just be aware of that as you move forward.
Commissioner Parker.
I'm actually okay. Never mind. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So motion. Let's see. Commissioner Denson.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. The question is, was getting some of the new verbiage that was included in this new plan, which I appreciate staff going through and making the changes on the different categories of streets. My question is to Manager Williams. Part of my concern, my question was us using these new categories of streets in this plan. Is this consistent with definitions of these streets with other policies that we have in like transportation and public work? That was kind of my concern about using different definitions for different terms. It gets very confusing. This uses different terminology than our current neighborhood traffic management program does. So are those phrases and those words consistent with other policies and stuff that we have on the books?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tim. Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah, and all these reasons expressed by my colleagues are why I support sending this back to committee to really take a deep look at this policy, since we use it so often when addressing our constituent concerns with safety in neighborhoods. So thanks, everybody.
All right. There's a motion on the floor and a second to send this back to the kitchen for a little more cooking. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, LRC, some more good times with this. All right.
Mayor, if I might too,
Yes,
I
sir.
do want to put a finer point on Commissioner Edwards' point. This is a really great example of, the commission working with staff to try to get some specificity to issues that commonly crop up and create, each situation's a little bit different. So I just want to thank you all for the time that you put into this and our staff as well. It gives us more clarity and helps us move forward with things. So it's a good process. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Manager Williams. All right. Next order of business, number 20 is the mental health patient transportation for the Clarke County Sheriff's Office. There have been some modest amendments to this since we saw it at the agenda setting meeting. Any input on this? Commissioner Link?
Yeah, we're about to have a new sheriff in town, and I'm wondering if any communication has been made with him or what.
Manager Williams, I don't know if you've interacted around that question.
Well, I have not requested the number of transports. I think were documented here. And through the contractor billed for. I mean, we can go back and run those numbers for you. But this is one of those things that the state requires every county to do. And at some point back in the 90s, the sheriff decided that they would help coordinate this. So whether the sheriff does it or another department does it, and I think that in some of your questions from the agenda setting session, the sheriff's office said that this is the most economical way to do this as opposed to hiring our own staff. This particular thing you're being asked to do is a 1-year contract with 4 renewals. And certainly the new sheriff needs to have a say in this. We could rebid this next year and allow the new sheriff to, really dig in and see how this is going. But we need to be able to provide for these transports. And these are specialized transports when you have somebody who's having a mental health crisis, to get from where the judge is asking them to move to a specialized facility. So this is just one of those things that we're required to do, and the sheriff's office is taking it on. And you can change this next year if you want.
That was the question I had, Manager Williams. While this is extendable, it does not bind us for future years. Is that correct? Okay. Commissioner Parker.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm fine with approving this for now, knowing that in a year's time, maybe we can get some of that supporting documentation from Commissioner Link, what Commissioner Link was talking about, and work with the new sheriff to see if there's a way that we can bring some of these costs down. But we gotta do what we gotta do. So I motion that we approve.
I'll second for now. Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. There's a motion from Commissioner Parker and a second from Commissioner Link for approval of this contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good job, everyone. Moving on to item number 21. This is the Office of Operational Analysis Audit Work Plan. Commissioner Link, I'll give you a moment to address this question.
Yeah, I'd like to request that we go ahead and put this on hold for now. We're having some staffing issues in that office. So hopefully another month or so will give us an opportunity to wrap up some of the work that's underway. And also, one of the proposed audits on this work plan is an audit of the elections office. And given current circumstances and ongoing developments, we may want to consider, a broader scope of that audit. So I'm just going to ask that we put this on hold.
Is that a motion? I'll second it.
Motion.
I'll second.
All
Okay.
right. Got a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Parker.
Do we have to approve the work plan all in one fell swoop? Because while I do agree that it is probably wise for us to give the elections office time to sort out everything we're going through right now, there have been calls to investigate funding levels in the police department. I do think that's something that we should move forward with, and it's just curious if we could potentially go ahead and approve that part of the work plan and then maybe come back to the elections office in some weeks or months when some of their flurry of activity has resolved.
I think part of, a big part of the reason I'm asking to put this on hold is also because the Office of Operational Analysis is still very busy wrapping up the 2 audits that are underway. They are vastly understaffed right now, and there's been some issues with some contract staff. So, part of the problem is we don't foresee the auditor having the time to get to either of these audits within the next month. We do hope that by the end of this month they'd be wrapped up and we can, have this vote at our December meeting.
So it's likely that delaying this vote will not delay the start of these audits.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's fine then.
And I'd share, Commissioner Parker, that at the retreat we have next Thursday and Friday, we'll talk about some of the justice and safety work broadly. And it's at least my estimation that some of the components of this audit we could draw from HR and from existing sources pretty readily, so that work can begin. And so it wouldn't be hampered by any delay in other elements in this audit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so have a motion to place on hold and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. We are moving on to item number 22. Item number 22, as you may recall, relates to a now order from Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court, Melton, who has required that superior courts make available some greater in-person opportunity, even while there continues to be a judicial emergency. And so the courts and management have worked together with the Classic Center to provide a larger space at the Classic Center, more available for social distancing for superior court activities, to include grand juries as well. And so you see the budget item here at just north of $350,000. But before I get any questions or input, let me have Attorney Drake read the ordinance for us.
An ordinance to amend the FY 2021 annual operating capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide funding for operating expenses related to the Superior Court and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Drake. Any questions about this item? Commissioner Link.
Yeah, it's my understanding this budget item is for up to $350,000, and that's pretty much dependent on whether or not some of these cases actually end up going to multiple day trials, correct? So there's a chance that we may not reach near that $350,000 amount, correct?
I believe that's the case. Manager Williams, could you provide a little context?
Yes, and remember too that there's been a backlog of trials that have been unable to take place, and so you're right that this is up to 30. It may not be this much. They may not go the entire 5 days that we've allocated for each of the 30 trials. So yeah, this is hopefully a not to exceed figure, and it'll be something less than this.
Okay. Well, I'm grateful that we've found this opportunity. I'm also happy to see some revenue go into the Classic Center in these difficult times. I think it is mutually beneficial situation here. I'm glad to know that, we can conduct some of this business in a much, much more safe environment, hopefully. Of course, circumstances may change with this pandemic. Outlook is not good going into colder weather. So I do hope that there is flexibility built into this to reconsider halting if things do get bad again. I just hope that we will continue to make those calls as changing circumstances happen.
Thanks, Commissioner Link.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I guess this would be for staff, and just I probably already know the answer to it, but was there any discussion, or is there any discussion of possible future funding coming from, say, the state to help us with something like this and helping other counties with something like this, especially after the governor has pulled out a majority of the CARES funding that we were going to be getting to help with things like this? Has there been anything else that even discussed at all that you know of?
Well, I do believe the two city and county associations, if you will, the Georgia Municipal Association and the Association for County Commissioners of Georgia, which have lobbyists on staff, have been advocating for additional funding from the state for these types of things. But this is really a directive from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that these things begin to take place. And so the answer, Commissioner Denson, is not directly by us or the Superior Court judges here in Athens-Clarke County really responding to, sort of an aggregating need here that's continuing as the need for these trials, and just trying to thread that needle of doing what they need, and then also having public health in mind.
Okay, thanks. And just my last question is, with this being for the entire Western Judicial Circuit, which also includes Oconee County, is there any kind of financial support coming from Oconee County to help with this kind of thing?
Yes, and I can follow up with some more specific information, but I believe that Oconee County has identified a site there so that some of the trials can take place in much the same fashion that we're using the Classic Center here.
Okay, thank you so much.
I believe there is a motion from Commissioner Link. Did I hear a second?
I'll go ahead and second.
All right. Any further discussion? Manager Williams.
Just further clarification, and I thank the court administrator for reminding me. So Superior Court normally comes under budget, and so we would use whatever you've already allocated to them first, and then we would tap this second, however that works out. So just to Commissioner Link's questions, hopefully less than where we are now.
All right. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. Item number 23 is just notice of the local historic district designation public hearing, which is scheduled for Tuesday, November 17th. I know there will be commission defined options. Commissioner Link, Commissioner Wright, I'd just give each of you a brief opportunity to describe your commission defined options as you know them to be. Commissioner Link?
Yeah, in continuing research on this area, I've submitted a commission defined option that it compacts the area quite a bit, sticking strictly to the traditionally Western and the kind of office and auto oriented theme to the district, excluding the whole street frontage, excluding the Methodist Church itself, since it would be the only church remaining in the district since we've narrowed it down to just the National Register district. I'd also, like to include some language asking the mayor to make a request of the Historic Preservation Commission to revisit the guidelines to come up with more specific guidelines for commercial properties, non-residential properties, and some of our more cottage-oriented neighborhoods. Those guidelines were developed, decades ago for places like Boulevard and Cobham, kind of more grander, varied, architecturally significant type districts. And we really need to, if we want to expand historic protection throughout our community, we really need to work in kind of flexibility and more opportunity for adaptive reuse, particularly in these commercial districts. So I'll be developing some language for that as well. But I hope that everybody has seen my new map. The whole point of historic districts is a district. It's not just about protecting what's there, but it's about protecting what can be built there. It's about the future as much as it is about the past. I have a background in art. I studied art history in graduate school. So, I'm very much in tune with the stories that objects can tell, and objects also includes buildings. This is very much part of our culture and our heritage. And I'm also very in tune to the idea of incremental development and the opportunities that are presented by these modestly scaled buildings, the ongoing opportunities they present for local investors and local small businesses. Too often we see, entire blocks of our downtown being taken up by large-scale corporate investors and completely removed from the market and the possibility of investment from local small businesses. So, that's also much of the reasoning behind developing a historic district, is to keep those opportunity for local small businesses, just as this downtown developed in the first place by local people making their own investments and creating small businesses. And the businesses have come and gone, moved in and out of these buildings, but they've always provided opportunity for locals.
Thanks, Commissioner Link. I would note for any members of the viewing public, I believe a map of your commission defined option is attached to the associated article at flagpole.com, demonstrating exclusion of the church property as well as exclusion of the 3 properties beginning at the northwest corner of Washington and Hull Street. I would say regarding the other design elements, well, I absolutely understand the conceptual or even political connection between the two, and I'd be very glad to craft an assignment to the Historic Preservation Commission, just legislatively, that they are 2 separate things. I just want to make that clear. Commissioner Wright, did you want to also describe the preparation you're under?
Staff is working on the map, and once I get that, I'll work with the attorneys to make sure I've got it concise to how it should be presented and be in the agenda. But basically, it's going off of the map that we had earlier and granting what the property owners who want to be in a district want. That's basically the block of West Washington, Pulaski, West Clayton, adding in, I think, one Drew's property. The majority of the people in the outlined map do not want it, and I'm speaking about the property owners. So I'm preparing something that speaks with the property owners' wishes. Unlike Commissioner Denson, who said at the agenda-setting meeting that historic districts are not for the benefit of the property owner, but they are for the benefit of the general public. I disagree with this sort of tactic on it. I think that is a very dated approach for us being in the 21st century. I think that we be listening to the property owners and what they want. And so that's the direction that mine is going in.
All right.
And I'll make sure it's in the packet so that it's launched with everything. I guess that's Friday the 13th. Is that Friday the 13th? Is that right? Yeah.
I believe that will be Friday the 13th.
I think it is. A lot of dates, a lot of deadlines there. But so I'll make sure it's in the packet, and staff is, as always, ready to work and get this in there. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. And again, no action tonight, but the vote will be the 17th, Tuesday, the 17th of November. All right. We have some planning and zoning items, beginning with item number 24. This is 498 Little Oak Street. We had a presentation from Planning Director Brad Griffin, who is on the call today, if there are any questions. And this is in District 2. Commissioner Parker.
That never happened to me. Yeah, I think I had most of my questions answered by Mr. Griffin at the last meeting, so I feel comfortable moving forward with this, and I motion that we approve.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think these items are being moved to Tuesday, December 1st.
I'm confused about that
24
too.
through 28. They're being moved because the notice had to be reposted.
Oh, I appreciate that, Attorney Drake. Thanks for catching that.
So our meeting's getting shorter by the minute.
We are. Okay, so Commissioner Parker will be ready to make a motion for approval in December.
Next time, yeah.
All right. Thank you much. All right. Any further questions about this item? All right. Item number 25, and again, moving to first Tuesday of December. This is 398 South Milledge. This is in Commissioner Link's district. Any words of wisdom, Commissioner Link?
So this item also is being moved to December?
That's correct. All the zoning items, because the notice had to be rerun for the public hearing.
Okay. I mean, I think I spoke to my feelings about this project earlier. This was initially supposed to be a special use permit because it's for a sorority house. But I mean, I really don't have much more to say about it. I have my own personal qualms about, how these large scale additions to these historic grand homes are being approached. And I really would like to see us revisit some design guidelines to assure that as these large homes get additions and are repurposed for Greek living, that they are repurposed in a way that they could be repurposed down the line, adaptively reused down the line. I'd much rather see, separate structures built on the property than these big additions that I feel often detract from the historic home or overwhelm them. But those are just my personal feelings on projects like this.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Link. All right. And we will see this again in December. The next item that we'll vote on in December is 1060 Hull Road. It's in Commissioner Thornton's district. Commissioner Thornton, any thoughts about this one?
No, I don't have anything. I think I spoke to this, but no, I'm good.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner. All right. Item 27 is the text amendment regarding building setback standards, particularly in new developments. Commissioner Link?
So is this one also being moved?
Yes.
Yep.
All of them.
Okay.
Just because of the posting, legal posting. All right. 28 will be the text amendment for multifamily zone density for lots of record. Any questions about that item? All right, we'll see that again in December. All right, moving past planning and zoning items. Item 29 is a resolution for claims for $400,000. Commission input on this item.
I move that we pass the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Denson. Any further input? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, do I hear? Actually, it's a voting meeting. We'll do motion to enter executive session after round robin, and then we'll do that. Motion to enter executive session. Following Commissioner input.
I think we've got some more items on the agenda, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we did that at the beginning.
Oh,
executive session.
Oh, I apologize. I had two different versions of the agenda. Had one prior. So item number 30 is appointment to boards, authorities, and commissions. Thanks for catching that. And I think Clerk Spratland sent out the list. Do I hear a motion for approval of that list?
Well, you should read it. We have people on the edge of their seat waiting to hear their name.
I know, but I want approval first so that there's.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Thornton, second from Commissioner Link. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So board appointments now include to the Joint Development Authority with the City of Winterville and the Unified Government of the Athens-Clarke County, Ken Paris. To the Regional Board for the Department of Behavioral Health and Disabilities, Kizzy Wingfield, excuse me. To the Hospital Authority, Helen Hudson Mills, Chandra Eccles, and Robert C. Lee. To the Athens Downtown Development Authority, Drew Deacle and Jason Leonard. To the Defects Board, Jeff Turner for the term expiring in 2021, Kyle Semple for the term expiring in 2022, and Andrea Lingard for the term expiring in 2025. And then finally to the Vision Committee, Courtney Etheridge, Latasha Sheets, and Laura Williams. So all those folks will be receiving notice from us, and everybody else who applied, we very much appreciate it. If you did not receive an appointment, please continue to apply. There will be another round of appointments that'll be advertised late this month, and we always really appreciate the volunteerism throughout Athens-Clarke County. All right, so moving on. Item number 31 is the outdoor retail area policy. So I'll ask Manager Williams to describe where this has gone.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And so with the advent of COVID, we found a lot of public health concerns about folks congregating together, and it impacted obviously a lot of our businesses across the county, and particularly in our service industry. And there were some suggestions by this commission and business owners that we consider some type of parklet policy, which was a program that we'd seen in other communities across America, where some of the on-street parking that wasn't used because of the lack of patrons could be used for the expansion of some of the service industries, such as restaurants. And the mayor, Mayor Gertz, appointed a working group made up of a couple of commissioners and some staff in the Downtown Development Authority to talk about what was possible. And a parklet program was proposed and accepted by this body in the fall, and that has been that was for a 100-day period. Even just 100 days ago, we didn't know what was around the corner. So that's one part of the agenda item that's in front of you right now, is the extension of the parklet program and some slight modifications to it. So that's one action you're being asked to undertake. And the second one is adopting an outdoor retail area program policy that would go on through the end of this year. And I do want to say that the task force, the working group the mayor appointed, had some reservations about bars having parklets. And the idea, and the mayor had brought this up, was we'll consider if we could trade some spaces inside the bars for outside and get more people outside, which is proven to be healthier, I think, with distance and being outside. And the task force had some concerns, staff had some concerns about that, but we heard from a number of you that this was something you were interested in. And so the mayor had asked me to have staff look at some potential ideas. And we did attempt to pilot this on Hall Street and ultimately on West Washington Street, and where businesses were interested in participating. We did that for 2 successive weekends in October. And last Tuesday, when wanting for you to ratify the latest emergency order that I had passed to check this pilot out, you had indicated that you wanted a more, you didn't want to do this piecemeal, weekend by weekend. You'd rather just have something that would perhaps carry us through the end of the year. And so staff has drafted a policy for that was shared with you last Friday. And the concept is, with outdoor retail areas, this is open to all businesses. And what it would allow is, just on the weekends, the closing of a portion of the street to where, and it has to be directly connected to the business, and whether it's retail or bars or what have you, give space for the establishment to conduct business outdoors as opposed to indoors. And specifically, as it comes to bars and restaurants that would participate in this, you'd ask that there be at least a 1-for-1 as far as seat trading. That, like, for every seat that you have outside, you give up one on the inside. According to the governor's current occupancy limits that are placed on those. Some feedback we had from you I thought was constructive was going ahead and posting the occupancy. The internal occupancy on the door and the outside occupancy, so that the officers or staff or whoever's coming by to make sure everybody is following the rules can quickly discern what needs to be done. These outdoor areas, it's expected that the establishments would provide, cordoning it off, having tables. Patrons are expected to sit. This is not a big congregating area. It's a place where folks can come and sit and be a patron, but do it in a socially distanced and responsible way. And so this policy is really an extension of the pilot that we did on West Washington. A couple of things that we added in the wake of sending this to you on Friday, and one of the concerns I had, and while we were being very deliberate and ginger about it is that, just to do it broadly over the entire downtown, we just didn't want to create, a festival atmosphere where lots of people were coming down and creating a health problem. And so we are asking you to consider approving this tonight, and then we would like to re-engage, Mayor, with the working group that you provided to help staff implement this in a way that is thoughtful and health and safe. So that's one thing that we ask. And we've also, in the course of this week, gotten some feedback from some of the establishments on College Avenue and College Square and that closed area, and they would have liked to avail themselves of something like this. And so this gives some consideration to them being included in the area. And again, I would like to engage the working group in short order to get their thoughts on this and how we do that in an equitable manner. So that's just a high level, and I'm glad to take any questions that you have.
Thanks, Manager Williams. Any input on this? Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so the way this is set up is that there will be surveys given to that particular block, and there'll be some kind of consensus among all the business owners on that block as to whether or not they will put a parklet out, and it's just for a particular weekend.
So, and I want to, yes, Commissioner Link, but if I could qualify that further. So I don't want to confuse the parklet with the outdoor retail area, not to get broken down in that, but the parklets are, once a business signs up, they are using those parking spaces in front of their business for the duration of the program, if they've properly registered. The difference with the outdoor retail area, it is not unbroken use. It's only on the weekends, and it goes beyond the actual parking into the actual street. And so the streets will have to be closed or traffic modified. And yes, we do need to know that, most of the businesses, or a good number, are interested in participating. You wouldn't want to shut down the street for just one. And so that is a little bit of a nuance here, but we want to do this thoughtfully because, closing down a street could affect a retail establishment, say, that didn't want to participate. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure that this works for as much as we can for the businesses downtown, because that's the point. If we could boil this down, it's to help the businesses conduct their business and make money and keep people employed, but we also want it done in a safe manner.
Yeah. I mean, that's my concern, is because I've not heard any input from retail businesses, stores, about a desire to move some business outside. Of course, I've heard tons from, bars and restaurants, but I have heard from at least one retailer who's not interested in the program, and sees it as a detriment because it would take up parking spaces and probably inhibit access to their space. So there is definitely going to be, in-depth survey, and it's not a 24/7 thing. It's, we'll pick a weekend. It'll be almost like a, mini festival type thing rather than a constant like the parklets are. So it's like, it's not like they're stuck with this for the entire rest of the end of the year. It's just, it would just be an isolated weekend. Correct.
Well, this would be, yes, depending on the working group and how we roll this out. But I do, and it was late today that we sent out a survey, but there were surveys done of different businesses downtown. One of the questions, to answer yours, Commissioner Link, of the survey was, if the outdoor retail areas program was offered in your block, would you be interested in participating? And this was broken down into business types such as bar, office, other, restaurant, retail, salon, beauty, tattoo, or vacant. And retail, of the total responses of 25, 16 of them would participate. 3 would not, and 6 were opposed to it. So a majority of the retail showed some interest in this, given certain conditions.
Yeah. Because I know the real crucial issue is making sure that we get folks who are eating and drinking outdoors, because that's when they have to take their masks off, and it's more likely to have that spread. Retail isn't nearly as much of a risk. But it can get crowded on some of these event weekends. It certainly can get crowded in some of these stores. And also the Christmas shopping season is coming up. So I see that this could be an opportunity for regular folks who live here who typically like to go downtown and do their Christmas shopping, but are reluctant to because of the pandemic, who might be more willing to if they knew there was kind of a sidewalk sale going on this street one weekend and that street the next weekend. So I see how this could be beneficial.
Kelly, can I make a motion that we approve the resolution?
Yeah, we've got a motion. I've got a couple more folks who want to provide some input, but be glad to accept a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion for what?
Motion to approve moving forward as Manager Williams has described.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Attorney Drake.
If I could clarify, as Manager Williams stated, there'll be two items the commission will be asked to approve. One is the Parkland outdoor retail area program, and the other is the other item is the
one is the Parklet extension, and then the second one is the outdoor retail area. Thank you, Judge.
I apologize. But with the respect to the outdoor retail area new policy, there is an ordinance that needs to be approved by the commission as part of this agenda item to allow for the consumption of alcohol not to conflict with our open container law. And so I'd like to read that ordinance if I could.
Please do.
And also, I'll read the ordinance. Okay. It reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to outdoor retail areas and for other purposes. And to clarify, based on what Manager Williams has said, I'd like to ask for an amendment. We had this ordinance expiring on Friday, December the 4th, 2020. But since this is going through the end of the year, I'd like to ask for an amendment to allow this to go through Thursday, December 31st, 2020.
Commissioner Hamby, Commissioner Link, you fine with that? Is a motion or a second?
Yeah.
I am, but I would like to hear Commissioner Edwards' concerns. I think he may have some if he, I don't know, maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. And Commissioner, I think Commissioner Harrod had some thoughts too. All right, Judd, is that the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to ask for that amendment to go with it to extend it from Friday, December 4th to expire 11:59 on Thursday, December 31st, 2020.
All right. Thanks, Judd. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've spoken to a lot of my colleagues about this issue, about expanding the road closure through this program, through this policy that we just received on Friday. And I was expecting, to table this for more consideration. And the reason I want to do that is because, importantly, we're trying to figure out the loading zone situation downtown. We've just closed an entire loading zone lane on Clayton Street. And I've been witnessing problems with loading in and out of Clayton Street to various retailers, restaurants, and bars. It's an issue. I'm working with Manager Williams. I know the police chief is getting involved in how to educate the truck drivers on where they need to park now. Downtown is in a delicate state right now. We just closed College Square, which is a huge. Sorry, I have this other phone line. No, I'm not going to take that call. We just closed College Square, putting further pressure on the parking stock downtown. We have a lot of people, that support that closure, and it's going great. We have tables set up. We have people getting food at the College Square restaurants, picking up to go and eating it on the benches we provided. Central Services did a great job putting planters. We've done great right there. Okay. Down the street on Washington Street with the pilot for this outdoor retail area, that's going fine. That's going fine. We've heard from many of the businesses there specifically on Washington that requested that policy. and we provided a pilot program that's going fine. Now we're about to blow the doors off this whole thing and expand it all over downtown. And I simply don't support it. I want to take a slower, surgical, more strategic step when it comes to closing down some more of these roads. And frankly, I just have not heard from businesses that desire this step in this area of downtown, like I've heard on Washington Street. So I'm fine extending the pilot on Washington Street. I want to be surgical elsewhere. We just got this policy on Friday. I need more time to look at it. I know Manager Williams has done great so far incorporating some of our feedback, but I would just like some more time, maybe till the November 17th meeting. So I support the parklet extension, but with this outdoor retail space, I'd like to make a substitute motion to table consideration for the passage of that policy. Table it until, I'm fine tabling it until November 17th. I just need more time, and I'm very worried about imperiling our College Square closure, which is a wonderful policy that has broad support in the community. I don't want to lose that by tinkering with more road closures. So I'd ask for my colleagues' support to table that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. I was going to say I saw Commissioner Link's hand, but and I'll circle back to you, Commissioner Link. But I think I also saw Commissioner Harrod and Commissioner Parker. Commissioner Harrod, did you have input on this item, or was I mistaken?
No, you did. I did. So my question is, why are we just talking about downtown? Why aren't we talking about other parts of the community that might possibly benefit from something like this?
I will note, certainly private properties, can have sway over their own comparable activities on any private property. That there may be some other public rights of way where this could be an option. 5 Points in Normaltown certainly come to mind, although I've not received any requests from any other businesses of any type.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, and I certainly would say that downtown is an incredibly important part of our community, but we're having all of this discussion about a very particular part of the county, and maybe there are other places that might also like to take advantage of this. And so, do we need to specify that it is only for downtown, or can we just talk about this being something for the broader community?
I think this is designed for the downtown street grid, Manager Williams. I don't know if you want to provide a little more context for the conversation.
Yes, mostly this is for the presence of on-street parking that we control. Somebody mentioned Normaltown. There are a few spaces there, but it's on a part of a state highway, like Broad Street. So there's a part of downtown that really can't participate in this as well when we talk about the parklet and certainly closing parts of the roads. So we could attempt to identify other spaces. This really wouldn't apply to a lot of the shopping center type development that we find along our major corridors, because those are privately owned parking areas. But we can try and identify. A few years ago in 5 Points, we had some spaces there, but y'all might remember with the there was a litigation that got taken care of. So if there are specific areas that you have concerns about, we can certainly look at those. I will say that administering this, is a bit staff intensive. But I mean, the product seems to be working, certainly at West Washington Street, as Commissioner Edwards pointed out. So if we were to roll it out countywide, we need to be judicious about how we do that and make sure we have the staff to support it.
5 Points is doing it in some of their parking spaces.
Commissioner Parker and then Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Edwards if he could reiterate his motion just so that I was clear.
Sure. I'm making a substitute motion to table consideration of the expansion of the road closure retail space policy that we currently have in a pilot program on Washington Street. So this is not the restaurant parklet program. The parklets, I think, are doing fine. We can continue those. Retail stores, by the way, have sidewalk sales already that they can sign up for and use the sidewalk. So I'm not ready to close any more roads or parking spots downtown for other businesses without taking more time to look at the problems we currently have with loading and the loading zones. And I'm worried about imperiling College Square. I want to protect what we're doing in College Square, and I think we risk a backlash if we go closing more roads around that area.
Commissioner Edwards, just to clarify, would your motion allow the present pilot on Washington to continue until consideration of this on the 17th?
Yes.
Let's see. I saw Commissioner Denson.
Sorry, one last thing.
Sorry, Commissioner Parker. Go ahead.
Fine. I'll second Commissioner Edwards' motion. I definitely agree with him that, I think we've been good job being responsive to business owners who have reached out to us requesting, the benefits of this, the benefits of this expansion with like area that they can use, affords them. But I do feel a little bit concerned about sort of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves and expanding this geographically when we don't really know how it's going to impact the issues with parking availability and loading, unloading, et cetera, downtown. And think that I love the current parklet program. I think it's working really well. I want to do everything that we can to support that in response to, folks reaching out to us with requests. But I just don't know if the need has been as well documented among retail establishments, which, as Commissioner Edwards has also noted, are doing, sidewalk sales and stuff like that at the current moment.
Oh, thanks, Commissioner Parker. Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. And you actually asked my main question, which was the Commissioner Edwards there. And I guess I'll just bring it up because I feel a little frustrated that we have to go through all this, made it really complicated, when I guess I really just wish that we could allow the bars to enter the parklet program so that we're not having to shut off entire blocks, but just use the parklets so that you just have these individual ones. I feel like we've made this so amazingly complicated when it doesn't necessarily have to. I'm definitely a little frustrated with that. I know some of the business owners are too, but I'll support Commissioner Edwards' request for us to take a look at.
Well, I was going to say briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Manager Williams. Commissioner Denson, of course, I'm similarly situated, particularly if we allow some reduction of indoor space as the trade-off for the outdoor seating, which I think epidemiologically is the right move. So, I would encourage consideration of that between now and the 17th when we'll follow up. So, Manager Williams?
Well, if I might speak to Commissioner Denson's concerns. So the working group that was noted earlier, comprised of commissioners and staff, were concerned about extending the parklet program to the bars. And in fact, as Commissioner Hamby reminded us last time, this body voted not to include bars. There was a specific vote that was taken. And the reason for that, even as recently as last weekend, I've received some complaints from folks, from commissioners about the number of folks waiting to get inside of bars downtown. And if we were to just broadly open up parklets across downtown, I'm afraid that, and again, that's the reason why staff was very, as it was called last week, piecemeal about this. We want to not create just overnight, flip a switch, and we've got a situation that's hard to manage and is unsafe. So I think it's shown that people do want to come downtown in bigger numbers, and we just need to be able to manage this and not create something that creates more of a public health hazard than we're looking for.
Commissioner Thornton.
We haven't voted, right? Yet. There's still a motion in the second.
Correct.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. I think right now we've got Commissioner Edwards' substitute motion on the floor,
which I do support. And I guess my question is, while we're looking at this again, could we also check how much money, how much revenue are we losing when we are closing streets and parking? Can we get that for next week? How much money we have lost with the parklets and get an idea of the revenue that is not going to be downtown no more. Just part of this research we're doing by the 17th County Manager Williams.
Well, Commissioner Thornton, I guess the part of this whole program is taking advantage of the fact that some of the traffic is not like it was. And I know the Downtown Development Authority has noted, and both for us and them, a loss of parking revenue, irrespective of the parklet program. And that was one of the concerns when we first started the parklet program is, once those vehicles start coming back and need a place to park to patronize these businesses, we'll need to scale back on the use of those spaces. So I say all that to say, Commissioner Thornton, that, we could compare what the revenue was pre-COVID with the spaces that have been taken up. I think we have 7 parklets right now, but it's really not apples to apples because the demand for parking spaces since COVID is less than it was pre-COVID.
I just wanted to get a ballpark figure.
Okay.
Thanks, Manager Williams. All right, circling back to Commissioner Link.
Yeah, initially when I heard of this, and I initially did hear about it from a business owner, a retail business owner who expressed concerns opposing it. I did have concerns, and I shared Commissioner Edwards' concerns about the loading zones and the disruption to parking. But once I saw the policy and recognized that this is merely a series of pilots scattered throughout, it's not a constant presence, and that we do have, additional events coming up in the coming weeks, and that there is a survey involved. I feel like what's being presented is something that is being carefully considered and does offer input options and does consider the different kinds of businesses on the streets. It's not like we're shutting down a bunch of streets all at once for an entire week. It's going to be, and it's very much dependent on whether or not the businesses are interested in participating. But it'll be one block at a time, one weekend, and maybe another block a different weekend. And it's on the weekend. So I don't see how loading zones even figure into the whole program because there is no loading and unloading on the weekends, as far as I know. So once I saw the program, I feel like I'm a lot more comfortable with it, and I do see it as an opportunity for our small businesses to keep customers outside, for them to present their goods to customers who are reluctant to come inside buildings. So I am supportive of getting it up and running right away, knowing that it is just one block at a time, dependent upon interest by those retailers on that particular block. And that when we do have these larger crowds, we do have a couple more football games. When we have these larger crowds, hopefully these indoor retail establishments won't get as crowded, and it's less of a health threat. So I'm great with getting it started right away, knowing that this is, a very piecemeal approach. And I really, really wish that we had a work session on this kind of stuff months ago. I've been calling for it since May, pretty much. I'm very supportive of outdoor activity and parklets and outdoor retail and whatever we can do to keep people safe as they carry on with, normal activity, because they are going to carry on with normal activity. The governor has mandated that we cannot interfere with that carrying on with normal activity, regardless of where the pandemic is in our community. So if that's the case, we might as well do what we can to make it as safe as possible. And tens of thousands of people descend upon this community on these football weekends, and they're gonna pack into our stores and our restaurants and our bars. And I feel like those are the weekends where we need to expand those options for outdoor And yeah, making that trade-off so that we reduce that indoor capacity. I'm totally for that. But I do wish that this commission had the opportunity to discuss this stuff at length back and forth at a work session rather than doing this, hammering it out behind the rail during a voting session.
All right. Any further input? All right. There's a substitute motion on the floor from Commissioner Edwards, second from Commissioner Parker. Consideration of the piece on hold will return to us on the 17th. I believe Attorney Drake has read the ordinance.
Well, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, so we're going to be voting on, are we voting on the parklet portion of it that modifies it slightly?
As I understand the motion, and I can confirm, we are continuing with the parklet and extending the existing pilot on West Washington Street.
Correct.
Oh, I thought we were voting on them as two separate things. We're voting on both items?
Either way, I'm fine either way. We can vote on parklets next.
Okay. I did have a couple comments I want to make specifically on the parklets. Yeah.
Okay, so my motion is to table the expansion, but allow the continuance of the Washington through November 17th.
All right, so that's the first motion. Everybody understand that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll oppose.
All right. Clerk Spratlin, just make sure you've got Commissioner Link opposed. All right. Now, continuing conversation about the parklets, specifically Commissioner Denson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And we've already talked about it a little bit, but mine is that right now this policy, although we've talked about it quite a bit, does not actually require any further reduction of occupancy inside beyond what the state order is. Is that correct? Am I reading that correct?
That's correct, and that was consistent. It is consistent with the policy you approved before, and it pertained only to restaurants.
Thank you. Okay. I think that that's not working, to be honest. For one thing, I don't think it's actually getting us to what we want to do here, which is to reduce occupancy inside and encourage it outside instead. I experienced this myself. I went to one of the restaurants that was participating in this past weekend and requested to be sat outside. I was told by the staff that they only use that for overflow if they get busy. If they have enough staff to do it, and it's true, it was completely empty. Nobody was sitting outside. They were filling every single table they could on the inside. To me, that's showing that policy is being ineffective, not actually getting us what we want to do. And I guess I don't understand why we do, since this is, it seems to me, pretty much the consensus is that we want to have a further reduction inside occupancy so we have them outside. Why we don't just go ahead and take this step? And so I would like us to go ahead and put that 1-to-1 ratio in place on this if we're gonna continue this policy.
I'll second that.
So to be clear, this would take the fire occupancy of a business as reduced by the governor's order, and then shift some of that allowable occupancy outdoors, thus reducing the interior occupancy if someone was to wish to take part in the parklet program as a restaurant.
Yes.
Okay.
Because otherwise I just don't feel like it's actually completing what we want to do. So.
All right. Commissioner Harrod.
Thanks. So maybe I'm confused, but I thought that's what we were supposed to be doing already. But that's what they were supposed to be doing already.
That I think was the general intent, but not written, not codified in the program.
Now we're talking about the parklet program, y'all. And this was done back in the summer, and what is being administered is exactly what you approved, and it was to expand area outside for restaurants, and that's it, not bars, to provide them additional seating capacity beyond the governor's limits, so that they could have a viable business and have patrons And I would just say this too. Should you change this, we already have some permitted parklets, and so I would just ask the attorney that we qualify this to where maybe the current version runs out when it was supposed to, and then going forward, those folks would have to renew under the new conditions that you may create. So I'm not trying to be, but going back to a parklet and saying, well, we know you have that permit, but we're changing it now. We need to kind of have a break so that they're part of the new program if you change it.
And Manager Williams, when is that current expiration of those utilizing the parklet program?
Dang it. I need to, let me look that up while y'all continue talking.
And I would just suggest one option is to continue the current model, and we could similarly table this until the 17th if you just want a little bit more time to consider.
I would be in favor of that, because I do want to make sure we get that that reduction in a way that's going to work. Maybe it's going to be a reduction of 1 for every 2 or something like that, so it's not quite as great. But I would be favorable to have this also just tabled then, with staff working on an actual reduction of indoor occupancy built into this.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I would agree. I have been somewhat disturbed in riding by some restaurants, particularly downtown, where they have parklets, at brunch time, and noting that on a beautiful fall afternoon, there is absolutely no one sitting in the parklet, but the inside seems to be completely packed. And I'm wondering how much monitoring of the governor's mandated capacity limits has been done. Have we actually had a sweep of eating establishments? I know we're regularly going through these bars, which are obviously over capacity and have lines halfway down the block, but I'm wondering if there's been any, real door-to-door analysis of what's going on in the restaurants, particularly at a busy hour like, 1 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, high brunch time, because I was a little nervous by what I saw. And the fact that there was empty parklet space on a beautiful afternoon says to me that some of these folks are not interested in using the parklet at all.
Manager Williams, I don't know if there's any kind of operational observation you'd make.
Well, two things. One is I found the date. It's November 12th when this runs out, so that's something to consider as you move forward tonight. As far as continual enforcement of, this is the first complaint I've heard about overcrowded restaurants downtown, and that's kind of how we've been dealing with this. This had been a whole nother level of enforcement for, our police and other staff that, as we've already have issues just keeping up with what's going on in the community from a day-to-day basis. The parklets, that idea and this program is based on other cities, as pointed out by this body, that they wanted to pursue that. And so that's what staff brought to you, and that's what was approved. And certainly if you have some concerns, we'd love to hear them about how it's operating. And I would like to suggest that perhaps we return to the working group, which is a mix of staff, and Commissioner Edwards and Hamby is appointed by Mayor Gertz, to hear your concerns about the parklet and hear their concerns and the outdoor retail areas, and bring all that back perhaps on the 17th after they've deliberated on that to some degree. And certainly welcoming any further input you have beyond tonight.
Commissioner Harrod?
Thanks. I guess my comment would be, if we're just going to do this as a kind of a replacement 1-for-1, then it doesn't seem like there's very much incentive for people to participate in this if their labor costs are going to go up, because they're going to have to hire more people to, deal not just with people inside, but also outside, or if they have the same number of servers, then those people are going to be, having to operate in 2 different sets of spaces. So, if you're going to do it, it seems to me that there would need to be more than a 1-to-1 replacement, and then that raises the question of, do we want even more people congregating? So I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's something to think about as we ponder this.
Kelly, I have something to add, if you don't mind, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, my take on it is similar to Manager Williams, believe it or not, and that I was under the impression that, when the governor's orders came down, that they were reducing occupancy rates inside. So we allowed for the outside to make up for that reduced occupancy rate inside. So anyway, if we want to hold it and look it over it again, that's fine. But I was operating under the same impression as Manager Williams in that regard. So,
y'all, given that,
yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was going to make a motion to hold it until the 17th if it already had been done. So
could we extend the current program through the 19th, given that it currently is intended to expire on the 12th? Could you make that part of your motion, Commissioner Hamby?
Yes, I'll be glad to.
Second.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah,
I'd like to say a few words on my second. Also we got to consider the capital costs for restaurants. They're going to need to be purchasing these propane heaters, to seat people outside from now on, practically during these winter months. So I'm fine exploring some trade-offs in our task force, but I agree with Commissioner Harrod, maybe 1 for 2 or something. We have to provide some sort of incentive ongoing for them to participate, because they do have those capital costs to create the barriers. Now they're going to need heaters. So, I think the parklet policy overall is working pretty good. Maybe now that it's getting colder, some of the restaurateurs are maybe hesitant to purchase these heaters. That might be something we see moving forward, but I'll look forward to thinking more about this in the task force, and I support Commissioner Hamby's motion.
All right, Commissioner Link, last go round.
Yeah, just one note to remember that the governor's order allows 35% or 50 people, whatever is higher. So you have a restaurant or a bar that's capacity is 50 people, they're allowed to pack it out. You have a restaurant or bar whose capacity is 75 people. They're allowed 2/3 occupancy, which is double what the 35%, the traditional occupancy of, basically any restaurant that is under 100 capacity is above what is, recommended by CDC guidelines. So I wonder if some of these overcrowding situations are perfectly legal according to the governor's 50 people or 35%, whatever is larger. So maybe we take a close look at how those guidelines read and come up with our own guidelines that will allow for, expanded capacity for these restaurants, but also mandate that the interior capacity be of a level in which people can properly distance. Because from what I see, there's not a lot of that going on in some places.
All right, so we will extend the current program through the 19th by the motion, and allow both the assigned committee and then on the 17th this body to take up in further detail. Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right.
Mayor Gertz?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you verify, did we adopt the ordinance on the outdoor retail areas?
No, we did not. It's not necessary to have that because it related to the outdoor retail areas, and we did not, because we're holding off on that.
Thanks, Jed.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll take that up again on the 17th. All right. We've already taken up item number 32 at the front end of the meeting. And then item 33 is simply the 10th declaration of local emergency as we extend that.
I'll read that ordinance, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Judd.
An ordinance for the 10th declaration of a local state of emergency related to COVID-19 and for other purposes.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. Moving on, I have just a couple of items tonight. apologize as I arrange my paperwork here on my desk. I've got a couple of committee assignments in addition to those that were sent back to committee earlier. I would like to assign to the Legislative Review Committee analysis of regulation of gas leaf blowers in conjunction with our noise ordinance. And I would like to assign to the Government Operations Committee a review of Chapter 4-1 Animal Control with particular observation of updates for department names, titles, and wording with regard to registration or licensing prospects for animals, with identification of concerns around the hoarding animals section, and then finally of the animal neglect area. So as everybody in the public probably has seen, we've elevated our animal department to a full department from just a division of our central services unit. And I just want to make sure that we're similarly looking at our ordinance language so we can do the best job as a community taking care of our furry or feathered or slithery friends. So that is everything from me tonight. Anything from the manager?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And as was announced last week, but in case anybody watching didn't see it, I regret to share that we're losing Assistant Manager Deborah Lonan to the City of Atlanta to become their next Commissioner of Grants Management, which is quite a post to be appointed to by Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. And I want to thank her for everything that she's done in this community and for this government, and particularly on behalf of our staff. Deborah really touched a lot of people here. She has that unique ability to make deep interpersonal connections. She made a lot of folks, including myself, feel supported. And I know that you all have had numerous and positive interactions with her. It's a great loss for this government, great gain for the city of Atlanta. And they need somebody of her caliber and integrity to really write things down there. And I know that she comes highly recommended by the officials at the Housing and Urban Development Department. And I wish her the best. And this is her last voting meeting with us. And if you have the opportunity, her last day is November the 20th. So for all of you on the commission and those of you watching, please, share your well wishes with her as she transitions to the city of Atlanta.
Thank you, Manager.
Thank you, Deborah.
A lot of love goes along with her to Atlanta.
And thank you, Manager Williams.
All right, Attorney Drake.
No updates, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Auditor Maddox.
I don't have anything tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. All right, I will go ahead and begin with Commissioner Davenport and then move through to Commissioner Hamby.
All right, I'll be quick. Jokingly, I was going to do a resolution to keep Deborah Lonan, but just thank you for all the work you've done, and we will all truly miss you. First, I'd like to thank the election office, the Board of Elections, and all the staff and all the people who worked so hard last night and over the course of a couple of weeks. Well-deserved pat on your back. Thank y'all for all the work you've done, including the community volunteers who helped out. I do want to make sure I get this right. Give a shout out to Mia Love, to Keisha Mapp, and Beverly Gresham from the Solid Waste. They were on GMA for the work that Good Morning America, excuse me. They were on Good Morning America Monday. I think a lot of people missed it because of the election. I just want to give them a shout out and to welcome Jesse Hill whenever he gets sworn in. And congratulations to John Q. And for those who didn't vote, you cannot complain. That's it.
All right. Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to express my deepest gratitude to Assistant Manager Lonan and best wishes on the next step in her journey. I'd like to invite anyone watching or any commissioners here to join us on Sunday at 2 p.m. at Virginia Walker Park for the rededication ceremony for the park. Very excited for that. It's been a long time coming. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'd like to also express my gratitude to Assistant Manager Lonan. We are certainly going to miss you immensely, but we cannot begrudge you the opportunity of hitching your wagon to the star that is Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. I know you will do great things in Atlanta, and they are extremely lucky to have you. I also want to say a few words about this election, the ongoing recount, and we will be seeing a runoff here in Athens-Clarke County for our district attorney. And I'm would like to ask the manager to ask the elections office to do whatever they can to get the word out to folks in this community that there is a runoff. I know that turnout on runoffs is typically dismal. And I'm particularly concerned about the couple thousand or possibly several thousand UGA students who voted in Athens-Clarke County. They will be leaving town in a couple weeks while the voting is ongoing for that runoff. And I'm not sure what the absentee ballot situation is with the mail and the requests and things like that. So I'm asking that our elections office work with UGA on contacting those students that are registered here in Athens to inform them of this election and assure that they are not disenfranchised because of this runoff on December 1st, as well as the runoff on January 5th for our Senate race, possibly 2 Senate races, quite frankly. So it's really important that we get that information to the proper people and that we do everything in this community possible to assure appropriate democracy in our community and assure that there is good turnout for these very, very important runoff elections.
Commissioner Wright had to leave. Apologize on her behalf. Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. First, just want to take the opportunity to, definitely thank Deborah Lonan, Manager Lonan, for her work in this body. I've appreciated being able to work with her, and definitely well wishes to going on to Atlanta. We really got to start getting some kind of kickbacks from Atlanta. They're getting some good people from us. I don't know. We got to work out some kind of deal. Yes, and big thank you to our Board of Elections, Board of Elections staff, and the many Athens residents who stepped up to work the polls, including my wife. So thank you to all of them for doing that great work and making sure the elections actually even happen. And as Commissioner Link brought up, we have a runoff election coming up very quick, December 1st, less than 4 weeks away. About 4 weeks away. So, that's quick turnaround here. So we need to make sure we get on that for district attorneys. So everybody get ready to go out and vote there again. And the last thing I want to bring up is I'll be having for District 5, a District 5 town hall over at the Chapelwood Methodist Pavilion. We've been having some traffic management programs. It's interesting, we've been talking about this so much, but having some traffic management speeding concerns in Homewood Hills. And so staff has been gracious enough that they will be joining us and any kind of concerned residents to be able to come out for a socially distanced, safe, masked, outdoor town hall. And that's going to be on November 16th at 5:30 p.m. again at Chapelwood Methodist Pavilion on speeding and traffic concerns in Homewood Hills. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Assistant Manager Lonan, for your professionalism. You've been a joy to work with on the commission, and I look forward to seeing you in Atlanta, hopefully down the road, and somewhere down there in that amazing city. I wanted to present an idea to my colleagues as we're thinking about early voting for, or how we're going to handle the voting for this runoff or district attorney. You know, as we have done early voting year after year in Athens, it seems like the first day of early voting is now like election day, and election day is now like the final day you could possibly vote if you're a real slacker. So looking at election day on Tuesday, pretty low turnout, you know, no lines anywhere all over town. Look, on the other hand, at the first day of early voting where we had one post open, line wrapped all the way around the block. So I'd like my colleagues to think with me strategically how we might address how the people vote nowadays and create more opportunities for that first day of early voting when there's so much pent up excitement for folks to go vote. And then maybe, you know, peter out those opportunities as it gets closer to the final day when all of the precincts open. I'd like to thank the mayor for referring to the committee of the LRC, the gas leaf blower inspection and examination. You know, I was thinking about this Saturday morning at 8 a.m. 3 blowers woke me up in my bed. I got messages from my constituents. This is a problem that's growing. This is a recent problem. Municipalities around the nation are addressing it, so I'm glad the mayor is taking some initiative here. I'd like to just mention to the manager, since we're on this call together, something came up about Riverbend Parkway. We were talking about expanding that transit line to Fernbank Court, that condominium association, where they have a nice turnaround right there, which will keep the students from walking all the way down Riverbend through that unsidewalked forest that's been kind of dangerous. And Manager Williams, I want to let you know I spoke to Stephen Kozlowski today, and he mentioned that it seems sentiment has changed in Fernbank Court regarding allowing transit to come down there and turn around in that area. So I wanted to put that to your attention and hear back from you, from Butch McDuffie or whoever else in your office on what you'd like to see from Fernbank Court Condominium Association ownership regarding their approval for us to go in that direction to make that transit corridor safer. Thanks again for the street lights on Deering to address some of the crime that we've had there. We've got 2 street lights and we're looking to possibly do more. So thanks for the support from my colleagues, and y'all have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Harrod.
Thank you. I too would like to wish Assistant Manager Lonan great success in where she's going to. I've enjoyed getting to know her and working with her. This is a great new opportunity for her. I'm very sad to see her leave. I think she's been great for our community, so I appreciate her work for us, and I will say bon voyage and double.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrod. We appreciate the international perspective. Commissioner Hamby.
Thank you, Mayor. I just was wondering about an input we haven't received any updates, I don't think, in a while from the prosperity package or the prosperity neighborhood leaders. And I was just wondering about getting an update on what's going on with those folks and what they're doing within the COVID environment we're in. So if we can get an update on the neighborhood leaders, that would be great. But other than that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
Could you make a motion to enter executive session?
Commissioner Thornton.
Commissioner Thornton, we'll get you. Commissioner Thornton, go ahead.
Let's adjourn before Commissioner Thornton gets hurt. I'll second that adjournment.
I want to first give a shout out to those nonprofits that got CARES money. I'm hearing a lot of good things. Some of the glitches that I've heard about, I just think it's just normal hiccups. But I do know and believe that those resources are getting to the people and those businesses that it was intended for. I sent an email out to my fellow commissioners and mayor and some of the school board members for the Downtown Development Authority and the school, Mamie with the school district, helping with internet. I know they're going back to school now, but families in the Bethel Homes area do have internet services, which they still can use, mainly because of Linda and Mamie. And as far as the prosperity package goes, we are planning a meeting Monday at 1:00. I sent that information to Jean and Blaine and the mayor to revitalize that committee. So maybe that's a good place to get an update report. And I'm going to be a little bit less formal with Deborah. One Sarah to another Sarah that's going with another Sarah. I really am going to miss you. Atlanta's gain is our loss. Tell my Sarah Keisha I said hello. She done stole you, but we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you, Deborah.
All right. And is there a motion to enter executive session and adjourn upon completion of that session?
So
Ski-wee.
All right.
said ski-wee.
I'm going to give that to Commissioner Denson and Commissioner Davenport as a motion and a second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? All right.
Can we take a quick
out of
break,
here?
Kelly?
And if everybody'd like to take 5 minutes, it's 8:20 by my clock. I'll see you at 8:25.